Why is it so hard for people to admit they want a divorce, and why do they instead start lying and hiding their affairs? These questions haunted me for a long time because I didn't understand how my wife decided to play this game, but if she decided to take such a step, then let her face the terrible consequences. It was a Friday night and the Alhambra Lounge was bustling with activity, and even though I was sitting at the bar, the place was still buzzing with excitement. I had my vodka in my hand. I wasn't there to drink and dance, I was there for a purpose. I knew it was dangerous. I was bracing myself for potential trouble that could land me behind bars. As I casually sipped my drink, my attention was focused on a couple sitting across the room who had been in my line of sight for close to an hour now. He in particular, who came here every Friday night, probably to support his wife's brother whose band played at the Alhambra every week. Finally, my patience was rewarded when the moment I expected arrived. The music slowly turned into a waltz and the couple gracefully got up from their seats and made their way to the dance floor, giving them a brief moment to find their groove before I got up from my seat and up and joined them on the dance floor. Approaching him from behind, I tapped him on the shoulder and asked him if I could join in. His wife stood by, shocked and horrified by the scene, but her instinctive reaction led her to accept what I pulled out of my pocket, and after seeing the lewd pictures of her husband and my wife, she went from initial shock to anger as she jabbed her pointed toe several times in her husband's body. I returned to my seat at the bar and waited for law enforcement to arrive for a possible conversation. It didn't look like anyone had called the police, but someone did come to talk to me. In fact, a couple of people talked to me first. I pulled a picture out of my pocket and handed it to them. The woman in the picture was my wife, I replied. He looked at the picture and then handed it back to me. I can't stand him and he knows it. He only comes on Fridays because my agreement with management includes free drinks for all my relatives. So why are you still here? I'm supposed to meet up with the others. Don't be a stranger, he said, and went off to find the rest of the band. A couple of guys picked him up off the floor and led him to his booths. She held up the pictures I gave her and asked me, I have dozens of them and 2 hours of footage. Can I get copies? No problem, I'll take you home. I'm ready to go. While in the car, I mentioned that your brother told me your name was Norma, and since I know your name, I think it's time for you to know mine. My name is Bob Lloyd, and in light of this situation, I'm glad to have met you, which sounds a little unusual. I'm glad because you've given me a gift tonight, and I'm confused. You've set me free, and you're providing me with exactly what I need tonight to come to. I've suspected that Vicky's been cheating on me for some time, but I've only recently been able to get the funds to hire someone, and when we went to her house she said, I'd like to invite you in, but I'm afraid that you'll take that the wrong way, that you might think that I'm trying to get back at Jim for being with another man and choosing you for that reason, and I'd like to hear what you think of Jim and what he's done, and you can count on me, that if I were to go to bed with you I would be no better than Vicky, and I'd be no better than Vicky. I followed her into her house and into the living room, and she gestured towards the couch and asked me if I wanted a drink. I don't intend to stay too long, and if I'm still here when your husband gets back I might as well go before it escalates, and he won't be coming back. I made it very clear before I left him that he shouldn't be coming back, and I warned him that I wouldn't hesitate to use my gun if he did. You're really going to go that far? Would you really go that far? Maybe not, but he knows I'm angry. He knows how I react when I'm angry, and he knows I have a pistol. You have a pistol? You seem surprised. It's a Lamar 380, something like a .45 caliber pistol. Jim knows I'm proficient with it. As she walks to the kitchen to prepare the coffee, I can't help but wonder why her husband would be with my wife, especially when he's got someone like Norma waiting in the house. Norma is an attractive woman. Norma is an attractive woman, and I'm sure she'll be happy to have her husband with her. Norma is a very attractive woman, and if I hadn't been around Vicky I might have considered pursuing her myself, but my relationship with Vicky wouldn't have lasted much longer, and who knows what might have happened. And then Norma came back and sat down on the couch next to me, and the coffee was ready in 5 minutes. And how long had Jim been seeing your wife? At least a month as far as I could tell. That's when I hired the private investigator to look into it, although it could have lasted longer, Jim, but I don't know. It's not the only one who's been seeing her. Jim may have been the only one, or he may have been one of many, who I just happened to catch. What did she say when you questioned her? I haven't questioned her yet. I doubt she'll find out. I know when your husband calls her tomorrow, I'll be curious to see how she handles it. You let her get on with it, and when I confirmed it, I consulted with an attorney about divorce. It turns out that in the state where I live we have a no-fault divorce. It doesn't really matter who was at fault. When I Found out about the divorce process. It doesn't matter who was at fault. It doesn't matter who was at fault. Once I understood the process, I started hiding my assets. Vicky may get half, but it's a lot less than she did a month ago. What can you tell me about Jim and your wife? They get together every Monday and Thursday, which are Jim's designated nights for bowling and cabin parties. I can't confirm if this was a one-time thing, but considering I travel about once a month, this may have been a regular schedule for them. I think that would explain Jim's sudden business trips. They always seemed sudden, but it never occurred to me that it might be fabricated. I went to see a lawyer early Monday morning. Unfortunately, they don't work on Saturdays, or I would be meeting with a lawyer tomorrow. I actually know a lawyer who works on Saturdays. If you're serious, I can put you in touch with them. I'm serious. I pulled out my cell phone and dialed a number on the speed dial. How did you do that? I guess he's not very popular and no one wants to call the police. You must be the luckiest person I know. I'll take any good luck I can get, man. By the way, I'm on speakerphone. I'm here with the wife of that asshole. I know you don't usually deal with these types of cases, but would you consider taking her case? Are you serious? You have all the evidence on her husband. Seems like an easy win. Great, that's settled then. Norma, meet my fraternity brother Sam. Sam, meet Norma. I hand her the phone and ask for the location of the restroom, then excuse myself to go to the restroom to give her some privacy. When Norma started talking, I put the phone back in my pocket and Sam said he would file the paperwork Monday morning and deliver Jim to his workplace that afternoon. That's my plan, and then the real fight begins. Vicky won't surrender easily. She'll hire a lawyer and contest the divorce. She'll put up all the obstacles, and I'll do everything I can to get around them. Sam predicts that she'll probably file with the court. Would you reconsider? It's not a chance. I could probably look at it as a mistake. I can very much understand why Jim is with me. I'm the breadwinner of the family, and at least satisfactorily for me, I'm not going to put up with any nonsense for no reason. I have a solid prenuptial agreement. If you have the money, why don't you consider hiring a private investigator? My money is tied up in a trust fund that I can't access until I'm 30, and I have 16 months left that I can use to pay for medical and educational expenses, but only until I'm 30. If I had expressed my suspicions when I first suspected him of cheating, he probably wouldn't have done it, because he was well aware of the consequences of adultery, and he was well aware of what he would have to lose if I caught him in the act. But I think it also says a lot about what he thinks of me, that he thinks I'm too ignorant to ever find out about what he's doing. I glanced at my watch and said I'd be leaving soon. Could I contact you once in a while to see how things were going? Sure, I'd like you to do that. Thanks again for the gift you gave me. Maybe I could take you to dinner as a token of my appreciation. Sounds great. I guess I should have thought about that before I pursued your husband. Oh well, it's too late to dwell on that. By the time I got home, Vicky looked the same, so I assumed that she hadn't gotten a call from her lover. I left my cell phone on my desk at work. I didn't even hear it ringing at home. Have you eaten? I've had a few drinks, so I'm fine. Dessert? No thanks. Are you sure? What have we got? Come to the bedroom and I'll show you. I glanced at her as I didn't respond. She must have thought I was a bit slow, so she added that we hadn't had sex in almost a week and I was feeling a bit needy. At that moment, Vicky wasn't on my preferred list, but I ultimately thought that I should take every opportunity available to me, and who knows how long it would be before I could find another opportunity for intimacy. I smiled as Vicky left the picture and responded, I accept your challenge. When we did it in bed, I couldn't shake the memory of what my wife had said to her lover. I don't know how Vicky felt about that. It was the first time I hadn't laid beside her after sex and dozed off with her in my arms. I hoped she was still awake thinking about it, maybe worrying about the changes. Vicky changed her plans. She was obviously worried and decided to show me how much she loved me. We repeated the actions of the night and afterwards we had a shower and dinner. Sunday passed uneventfully. I was busy with chores and around noon Vicky's mother arrived to take her shopping. When Jim came home, he walked in as if nothing had happened and I immediately asked him to leave, claiming that the house was as much as it was mine. He refused to budge and left briefly. How's it going on your end? It's quiet. It seems like Vicky hasn't heard anything from your husband. Either that or she's a brilliant actress, but come to think of it, she could be. She's been fooling me for years into believing that she's a devoted and loving wife who lives and learns. Did Sam mention when he'll be ready to prepare your paperwork? I'm not sure of your plans, but I told him to deliver them this afternoon at Jim's place of work. I had the same plan. I was hoping to give her a big surprise, but that doesn't seem likely now. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to spoil your plans. You didn't. I spoiled them myself because I confronted your husband Friday night. We'll meet Monday night. I'll take you to the dinner I promised you, and we can have a couple of drinks to celebrate for a bit. I won't know until tomorrow night. If I can make it, I'll be busy moving as soon as Vicky gets off work. In the divorce proceedings, even though her parents gifted her the house, the mortgage on the house is Vicky's responsibility. Although the title is in her name, my income covers half the mortgage. My goal is to recoup some of my investment. Sam assures me that the chances of success are better than average. When Vicky comes back from her grocery shopping, she prepares dinner afterwards. We relaxed on the couch and watched TV until bedtime. Vicky snuggled up to me as we lay in bed, and I ate breakfast at a nearby diner to give her time to get to work, and we moved all my stuff out of the house, storing it in his garage until I could find a new place to live. Tom and his wife, Pat, graciously offered me a spare bedroom until I could find a permanent place to live, and I called Sam and he confirmed that I was in the $2.5 million mortgage. Phone, and he confirmed that in too. On a whim, I called Norma and asked if she would keep me company while I waited for the expected phone call, and that she would welcome me to her home after our spouses were served. I guessed that Vicky would call to deny any wrongdoing and suggest that we set the record straight. Would you go to Norma's house? I asked her if she wouldn't, and she replied that Vicky would just lie and give the usual excuses that cheaters make when they get caught. I wouldn't believe a word she said, so why should I waste my time talking to her? It's pretty much what I expected of Jim. Can we discuss something other than those two assholes? Sure. How about the Broncos? If he improves, the Broncos might have a chance to win, and I was impressed that she expressed my thoughts exactly. Author's note: at the time of this writing, the Broncos had a record of 0, and we discussed football in depth, particularly Denver's defense. I put my cell phone on speaker mode and answered it while saying, "Good afternoon, this is Bob. What's going on with the divorce?" My private investigator collected the photos and videos for me, and I sincerely hope that you won't try to convince me that this is all a misunderstanding, and that those people in the videos aren't you, and that my private investigator caught him and admitted. Vicky, you're busted, and we'll talk about it when we get home tonight. And no, by the time you get home, you'll find that I've already left, and that any further communication between us will have to go through my attorney. And goodbye. Vicky. Just as I've ended the call, Norma's cell phone started ringing. She glanced at the screen. It was Jim. He never calls me during the day, she added with a smile. I wonder what's so urgent. She added with a smile, I wonder what the emergency is. When she answered the phone, she put it on speakerphone. Hey, it's me. What's all this talk about divorce? Norma told me that they seem to be following her husband's script, and her husband asked me. I was just telling Bob that it sounds like you and your mistress are following the same script. To which I replied, why are you with my wife? We looked at the footage his private investigator got. We looked at your interactions with his wife, and frankly, we've come to the conclusion that there's no way that either one of you could ever be in an adult movie. I countered by saying that Norma is a much better woman than the woman I used to be married to, and he's a much better woman than you are, and that even when you were at your best, Norma was a much better woman than you are. Norma added, exchanging a smile and a high five with me before she continued, as he had said to his cheating wife a few minutes ago, from now on all communication will be through my attorney, and you should find his business card and the legal papers that were handed to you, and you can come and pick up your things at 6 o'clock in the evening, but keep in mind that all the time you're here I'm going to have my pistol ready, chambered and loaded. He paused for a moment before he said to me, you caught me off guard, you bastard. I will seek revenge on you. You don't have to. I will be waiting on the front porch for you to come pick up your things. When you come to get your stuff tonight, bring your stuff. I've got a lot of anger and beating you up will take it out. I'll have dinner ready in case you get hungry. I've got a couple of apartments to check out this afternoon, but I'll be back by 5 in case he shows up early. I'm just giving you a place to stay, not special treatment, and even that wouldn't be appropriate. I'm not giving her anything she can use against me. I've got her trapped, and I don't want to give her any wiggle room. And by 5 o'clock, I'm back at Norma's place, and we're seated on the swing on the front porch, and Norma brings iced tea and cookies, and we're chatting away, and the conversation turns to my upcoming divorce. I replied that I didn't want revenge, not at all, that any act of vengeance would only lead to escalation, and that frankly I didn't value Vicky enough to put any effort into it. My eyes turned to Norma, who was wielding what appeared to be a scaled-down version of a Colt 45 aimed at her fallen spouse. "Oh," he howled, "you scared me, Dan. I was right, you're totally inadequate and a danger to society." My husband attacked me with a baseball bat. I had to defend myself. Calling an ambulance didn't work. He was writhing in pain on the floor, screaming at me. He was incapable of hurting me. I get it. I hung up as soon as the police arrived unless he got back up and tried to attack me again. I would not hesitate to put the whole magazine in him. She ended the call and said, "You should leave before the police arrive. There is no need to get you involved. No, I will back you up. Run inside and gather all the evidence you got from Sam and bring it here. We will tell the police I was delivering something to you. I got there just as he was approaching you with the vat he had on the bee next to him and he had his fingerprints. We'll insist on the veracity of everything else until he pulls into the driveway. We'll tell them to wait together for his frantic phone call with Vicky, what was said, and how you notified him that he could pick up his stuff at 6 p.m. Norma grabbed some materials from the house, came back, and we sat on the swing listening to her husband's whining as we waited for the police to arrive. As the sirens approached, 2 police cars pulled up with 4 officers in them, fanning out and advancing toward the porch with guns drawn in our direction. I instructed the officers to handle the baseball bat carefully as it was evidence. Norman and I were taken separately to the police station and each placed in a different room. A detective came in and I recounted my version of the events. 3 hours later I was released and sent back to Norma's, where I picked up my car and headed to Tom's place. Norma stayed with them until about noon the next day. "I would like to invite you to dinner, but given the current situation I think it would be best for us to keep our distance for the time being." She said. I agreed, but I assured her I would be in touch at 4. Norma called me to tell me that the story had been in the local paper and asked me if I had seen it. As I hadn't, I went to the 7-Eleven and bought a copy. I was relieved that my name hadn't been mentioned, but Norma and her husband were in the paper, and the article mentioned that her husband was hospitalized, though not in a life-threatening condition, and that Norma had been charged, but not released on bail. I asked urgently, "I need to talk to you, B. I need you to listen to me. I want to explain to you what happened and why. I want you to know that I love you and don't want to lose you, Bobby." Vicky pleaded. "That may be what you need, Vicky, but what I need is to be done with you forever. This is the last time I will ever talk to you," I retorted. "I will fight for a divorce. I will hire the best lawyer I can find to make this difficult. I will hire the best lawyer and make this difficult for you. I have talked to people who have gotten divorces, and I know what I can do." "Vicky, you have learned nothing. Vicky, you can't stop a divorce. You can make it long and expensive, but you can't stop a divorce unless I agree to it. You can't force me to take you back or to live with you. All you are doing is wasting our money on attorney's fees and litigation costs. And if you want to spend years paying your lawyer." I paused as if something suddenly occurred to me, and then suggested that perhaps it would be to my advantage if you resisted the divorce, and that I could instruct my lawyer to stop the proceedings altogether. No court-ordered alimony, no messy division of assets. The more I think about it, the more attractive it seems. So Vicky, go ahead and contest it and I'll take it back. Yes, that suits me fine, and who knows who you'll meet someday who you'll want to tie the knot with, only to find out that you're not on the other side of the divorce. The choice is yours, Vicky. Sign the divorce papers, and in a couple of months, it'll be over, and I'll stick to my plan. But whatever you decide, one thing's for sure, and that's that I'm leaving you for good. Goodbye, Vicky." Over the next month, a series of events occurred, both positive and negative. Sam assumed that by not signing and returning the divorce papers, the divorce proceeding would be halted, thus avoiding attorney's fees. Her assumption was wrong, and although it was not in our interest to correct her, we had proof of service, and her failure to respond meant that the divorce proceedings would continue. In addition, the soon-to-be re-elected district attorney insisted on filing charges against Norma, possibly to avoid being portrayed by opponents at the divorce hearing as being lenient on the crime. Knowing that I would regain my freedom in 120 days, I dined with Norma that evening, and she again offered to accommodate me. "You don't have to worry about appearances anymore now that your divorce is finalized. Due to the adultery and the baseball bat incident, maybe the divorce will go smoothly, but part of it involves the division of property, and I may be complicating things for you here. It doesn't matter. The most he's going to ask for is half of the house and some of our savings, and I don't want to do anything that might make it more difficult for you." "Why are you talking like this? Why can't you express your feelings?" Because I want to be with you, but I can't. Why not? Did it ever occur to you that your feelings might be mutual? I may have to testify in both trials and I need to minimize any potential damages. Maybe we could meet once a week for dinner and explain that it's to keep each other up to date on the status of our divorce since it was our spouses that caused it, but even that could be risky and we need to keep our distance until the court case is resolved. I took Norma out to dinner once a week. It was a pain not being able to go where I really wanted to go, but I forced myself to keep my distance. I could see the disappointment of the DA as Jim's blunders demonstrated his inability to adequately prepare his witnesses. Norma stuck to the agreed-upon story, and then it was my turn to testify. Yes, I knew I had perjured myself, but I didn't care. After all, the bastard had ruined my marriage, and I felt I owed him some revenge. The jury deliberated for less than 15 minutes and returned a not guilty verdict. 3 weeks later, it was my husband's turn to go to trial. The jury took only 20 minutes to return a guilty verdict. He was sentenced to a year and a day in prison, but his stupidity was further proved by the fact that he openly threatened me in front of the judge, the jury, the prosecutor, and the audience. The first night I moved in, she came into my room and slid into bed next to me, something I'd been dreaming of for months. She whispered, placing her hand on my instrument, and one day her husband and I joked on the phone about how much better Norma was in bed than Vicky, and as it turned out, we'd had a wonderful night, and the next morning, it all happened again, and I wish I could say that our story has happily ever since been. It ended happily ever after, but that wasn't true. The relationship between Norma and I was passionate and at times seemed to overwhelm us, but eventually we realized that our bond was based solely on physical intimacy and soccer, and that while we genuinely liked each other, love wasn't part of the equation. I wished her all the best and assured her that I would be there for her if she needed it. I remember her replying to me, but I never heard from her again. She received the divorce papers in the mail and immediately called me names. You scumbag, how could you betray me like that? I never agreed to this nonsense. No spousal support. You make twice as much as I do. Is that fair? I couldn't help but chuckle at her anger and responded, oh, but you agreed. You agreed not to seek legal counsel, not to contest the divorce. You could take out a second mortgage on the house to settle my share if you needed to, but I didn't want to get rid of you, and I was relieved that she couldn't see my expression as I hung up the phone. The truth is, I didn't want to let her go either, but the harsh reality is that I can't be with someone who cheats on me. Thank you for taking the time to listen to today's story. If you enjoyed it, please consider bookmarking and subscribing, and if you haven't already done so, please share your thoughts on these events in the comments below.